The river and the truth. The next morning, the group rafts down a section of the zipper that contains an impossible waterfall. A sheer drop that the boats slide down without accelerating. JP vomits over the side. Dulin pats his back. By the time they beach on a gravel shore for lunch, JP's head has cleared, and Margaret has been trying to grab his elbow for an hour. While the guides hand out sandwiches, JP and Dulin float in the river, passing a vape pen. I called Beth Ann last night, Dulin says. Asked her to move west. She said she'd think about it. You're a romantic, says the guy who gave a wanted fugitive his hat. They drift in silence. Dulin's voice turns serious. I'm not leaving you, JP. Not for Oregon, not for anyone, till you decide. JP closes his eyes. I'm not changing my mind. I saw the offer in that apartment. I don't want it. He tells Dulin about the 3 days, the absence of pain, the conclusion that a memoryless afterlife is worthless. I'm still going to die in Seattle, on my own terms. Then I'm still going to be in the room. They bump fists. Later, when they've hauled themselves onto shore, Margaret leads JP away from the group. She swaps his ball cap for her wide-brimmed hat. The gesture is intimate, almost ceremonial. I couldn't tell you before, with Deb listening in, she says. The simulators are trapped. They build this universe because they can't solve their own exit problem. That man from a previous iteration, Auntie Tim, told me they're desperate. If they find the answer somewhere in their simulations, they might escape. If not, they delete everything and start over. JP stares at her. So, the gods are praying to us. We can't save ourselves, but we can save the people who come after us. That's why I built the Devil's Toolbox. It's a backdoor into the operating system. If we can stay alive long enough to plant it, we might give the next world a chance. JP laughs, a dry rasp. I thought you'd solved everything. Instead, you give me 1 generation worth of hope. It's all I've got. Okay, he says. Let's be a pain in the neck for the simulators, then. The vertical circus. Lisa Marie has never been this miserable. The van ride down the zipper's zigzag road nearly made her sick, clutching a backpack on her lap, ready to vomit into it. Her Betsy Johnson crop top and Vivienne Westwood maternity skirt the last things on her mind. Now she walks the Angle Iron's impossible corridor, one hand on the wall, the other scrolling her phone. No signal except SOS. Still, she's been posting to protagonist boards whenever she can catch a bar. Call me protagonist, bitches. I have what you want. She tags every John Galt reference she knows. Christopher, bald and made up and terrified of his father's voicemails, follows her. You should rest. I'll rest when my engagement hits 6 figures. She stops at a vending machine. Agamemnon DM'd me. He wants a video call. They find a corner with 1 bar of signal. Lisa straightens her top, rehearses Christopher's lines. Remember, monosyllabic, heroic. You're John Galt. The video connects. A young man with a buzz cut and an assault rifle in the background stares at them from a motel room. You said you know where the bot is. Margaret Schell. 6:30 tonight. The Avatar's Nexus tent on the zipper floor. I want it live streamed. I want credit. We do it our way. No, she cuts him off. No bystander casualties. And the bot stays alive. She's your only link to Utnapishtim. The protagonist leans back. You're the pregnant one. Fine. But if you're playing us, your baby gets a cameo, it won't survive. The call ends. Lisa turns to Christopher. Get my jacket. We're meeting them at the Serenity Station. The protagonist's gambit. The Serenity Station is a tire rental cabin near the Midway. By the time they arrive, 4 protagonists are already there, backpacks heavy with rifles and Kevlar. The leader, Agamemnon, calls Christopher John Galt and shoves Lisa into a chair. We do it now, not 6:30. Now, the Avatar won't be there. We'll make him be there. Agamemnon has already seen Margaret's schedule, thanks to an Instagram post Lisa tagged number baby trek. The protagonists zip tie her and Christopher duct tape their mouths. A young guard named Sparks is left behind, trembling over his AR-15. Lisa screams into the tape. She screams until Sparks, panicked, says, Are you really in labor? He peels the tape off. She gasps. The baby, it's coming. Please cut the ties. Sparks hesitates, then saws through the zip ties with a knife. The moment her hands are free, she reaches into her purse, pulls out Christopher's father's pistol, and shoots Sparks in the head. Christopher stares at the body, at the blood spreading across the floorboards. Lisa works the knife on his wrists. Get Beth Ann, now. Something's wrong with the labor. I can feel it. He removes the magazine from the Glock, tosses it into the bushes outside, and runs. Blood and duct tape. By the time Christopher reaches the Nexus tent, chaos has already arrived. The Avatar Soggetzin is on stage, mid-sermon, telling Lenora Neville that pain is a lie she can learn to unplug. Gunmen burst through the side flaps. The Avatar goes down, a bullet in his arm. The crowd surges. Joseph and Marcus, the Austrian honeymooners, grab Mrs. Neville. "We're getting you out, Mrs." Neville pulls a large knife from her purse. She always carries it. For fruit, for envelopes, for moments like this, and holds it out. Beth Ann snatches the blade, slashes the back wall of the tent, and motions everyone through. Dulin is already pulling Beth Ann toward the exit when Christopher's voice finds them. "Lisa, Marie, the baby please. She needs you." Dulin and Beth Ann sprint for the Serenity Station. Behind them, the tent empties in a flood of panicked tourists. Meanwhile, the reader, Chen Xingxing, has been trailing the Avatar all day on orders from a barefoot man on a train. Now, as protagonists flood the stage, Xingxing shouts, "We are all pilgrims on the trail," and leads Margaret and JP toward the back warehouse, where they shove the Avatar into a cluster of canoes. Outside, the gunfire pushes the rest of the tour in a different direction. The aged Sister Janet, impossibly old and impossibly calm, is being carried by the rabbi and Sister Patrice, the novice. A young woman in a tie-dye shirt follows them into a food tent just as a bullet catches her face. The rabbi lays the old nun down, looks at her peaceful eyes, and suddenly understands why she invited him. Not as a mirror, as a witness. He stands up. "I know why I'm here," he says, and walks into the cha. Oz. Janet screams for him. The sheep from the hollow flock, the one that's been following them since Kentucky, trots past the rabbi's legs, heading for the riverbank. The rabbi, limping on a twisted knee, follows. The sheep wades into the shallows. The riverbed is flat and the current gentle. "Cross here," Zev, the rabbi, shouts. The sheep shows the way. The water is cold. The hollow sheep stands mid-current, water under its belly, as if waiting. The rabbi has never been so sure of anything in his life. He calls across. It's shallow all the way. On the far bank, the bus is waiting. Agnes has arrived and is helping the injured board. The remnants of the tour, the honeymooners, supporting Mrs. Neville, Sister Patrice, pushing Janet's wheelchair. Doctors holding hands start to wade. One by one, they cross. Back at the Serenity Station, Dulin, Beth Ann, and Christopher have gotten Lisa Marie onto a makeshift stretcher. 3 Kevlar vests buckled together, rifles threaded through the armholes as rails. JP, in full engineer mode, tightens the knots. Lisa Marie's face is the color of old paper. Beth Ann's hand is inside her, pushing the baby's head off a prolapsed cord. They carry her across the river, ford the rabbi found. The parking lot. The bus is running. The guide finds Peter Atherton's binder under the driver's seat. Red-tabbed pages open to a map of the fastest route to the nearest hospital. But the parking lot is no longer empty. A man in a cheap suit steps out of a black sedan. "Dr. Schell, I'm Chet, CET. He shows a badge. You're coming with me." Margaret stands beside JP, the DevTool laptop left behind in the tunnel, alive only in her head and in the letter she gave to no one. "Let my friends go, then I'll cooperate." "Stay right there." Christopher's voice rises from behind the sedan. He has the Glock, now reloaded from the spare magazine, pointed at Chet. His hands shake. Nobody takes her. JP steps between them, arms out. "Put the gun down, Christopher. This isn't who you are." "I know who I am." Tears cut tracks through his makeup. "I'm the man who doesn't let another person die." "Then don't." JP turns to Chet. "She's coming with you, but the group gets safe passage." Margaret looks at JP. He nods. She raises her hands. "All right, Chet. I surrender." She walks toward him, slow, deliberate. She passes Christopher. The gun is still raised. JP holds his breath. Dulin, from the bus steps, yells, "Chris, no!" The gun goes off. Christopher's finger had been on the trigger. He'd forgotten the round in the chamber when he removed the magazine earlier. The shot tears into Dulin's side, just under the ribs. Beth Ann screams. Dulin staggers, looks down at the blood, and says, I think I'm gonna need that hand." Dulin's wound. The parking lot dissolves into a rush of movement. Margaret is shoved into the sedan. Chet guns the engine. JP catches Dulin as he falls. Beth Ann presses a wadded shirt against the wound, screaming at the guy to drive. Drive now. Christopher drops the gun and stares at his empty hands. The bus engine roars. Agnes has the binder open to the red tab section. The guide floors the accelerator, and the bus lurches up the zigzag road, the zipper's impossible walls receding in the rearview mirror. Inside, JP kneels beside his best friend. Dulin's comic book grin is still in place, but his color is wrong. You're gonna be fine, JP says. You're in the next issue. Tell Marion, Dulin whispers. Tell her I was an idiot. You tell her yourself. Dulin's eyes flutter closed. The bus pushes through the Utah desert. The ambulance waits for no one. Beth Ann keeps pressure on. Lisa Marie moans in the rear, the baby's heart rate dropping. The aged nun, Sister Janet, in her 90-year-old body, closes her eyes and prays to a God she no longer believes in. And JP Laurent, dying engineer, holds his friend's hand and counts the seconds. Episode 3. The Aftermath and the Ghost City. Hospital waiting rooms operate under their own physics. Time liquefies. The clack of a door opening is louder than a dozen panicked voices. Gravity is variable, pulling some people deep into their seats, pushing others out of them to pace and fret. Whatever is happening in the crucial rooms, the maternity wing, the surgical theater isn't known and can't be known until a nurse or doctor exits the causality bubble and carries the news. This urgent care facility in southern Utah was not built for a mass shooting. The tour bus arrived hours ago at the front of the flood, but more victims of the protagonists have been rolling in since. The waiting room holds 30 seats and 43 people who won't sit down. JP Laurent stands at the window watching the eastern sky pale toward dawn. His charter all-weather hat is gone lost, somewhere between the parking lot and the ambulance bay. He can feel Brian, the tumor, pressing against the back of his left eye like a thumb. The chemo pills are still on the bus. He doesn't care. Behind him, he hears the small sounds of the room finding its shape. Sister Patrice pushing a wheelchair into a corner near the vending machine. The rabbi, Zev Landsman, settling onto a plastic chair beside it, his trousers still damp from the river crossing. A hollow sheep dozing at his feet like a dog that has decided it belongs to him. Across the room, the Austrian honeymooners have taken charge of a gray-haired woman wrapped in a blanket. A cup of tea steams untouched on the arm of her chair. Her hand keeps drifting to her purse, where something heavy rolls against the fabric. JP catches the motion, but doesn't know what it is. The reader props a broken ankle on a duffel bag, working methodically through a paperback, pretending not to watch the double doors. Anita Chana is on her third phone call with a company director named Tanya, who keeps telling her to stay calm. Agnes, the driver, has given up on corporate and is outside smoking with the EMTs. None of them knows what has happened to Margaret Schell. None of them knows if Dulin Marks is still alive. The double doors swing open. Christopher Mullins walks through, still wearing the black jacket Lisa Marie bought him at the supply stop. His shaved head gleams under the fluorescent lights. His makeup is streaked. He stops 3 steps into the room and stares at his empty hands. JP turns from the window. Christopher. Christopher's voice comes out scraped raw. I took the magazine out. I swear I took it out. I forgot the one in the he can't finish. JP crosses the room. He doesn't speak. He puts a hand on Christopher's shoulder and lets it rest there, heavy, until Christopher's breathing slows. I shot Sparks, Christopher says. In the cabin, Lisa Marie tricked him, and I just stood there while he swallows. And then I shot Dulin. He was yelling at me to put the gun down, and You were trying to protect Margaret, JP says. I was trying to be someone. Christopher looks up. His eyes are red but dry, as if he's run out of water. Lisa Marie said I was a hero. She made me look like one. But I'm not. I'm just the guy who forgets there's a round in the chamber. The doors open again. A nurse in blue scrubs scans the room. Family of Lisa Marie Montello? Christopher's head snaps up. Is she? The baby's born. Emergency C-section. Both mother and child are stable. The nurse allows herself a thin smile. It's a boy. She's asking for someone named Christopher. Christopher looks at JP. Go, JP says. He goes. The waiting room settles back into its uneasy equilibrium. The honeymooners resume their whispered argument. Agnes comes in from outside, smelling of cigarettes, and puts a cup of vending machine coffee into Anita's hands without asking if she wants it. And then the doors open a third time, and everyone knows. It's not what the nurse says, it's how she says nothing. She stands in the doorway, scanning the room with a particular expression of someone who has bad news and is looking for the right face to receive it. Family of dueling marks? JP doesn't move. Behind him, Sister Patrice answers. We're his family. The nurse hesitates. I'm sorry. The surgical team did everything they could. The bullet nicked the inferior vena cava. He lost too much blood before we could repair it. The gray-haired woman with a blanket makes a sound, a single exhale that is not quite a word. The honeymooners stop arguing. Agnes puts her face in her hands. JP feels Brian pulse behind his eye. He feels the weight of the room tilt, gravity shifting again. He thinks of Dulin in the raft, floating on the Zipper River, saying, I'm not leaving you, JP. Not for Oregon, not for anyone. He thinks of the bus brochure Dulin handed him months ago, the one with a tunnel on the cover and a tagline about seeing the impossibles before the simulation ends. Can I see him? JP asks. Of course, the nurse says. Beth Ann Neville meets him in the hallway. Her scrubs are blood-soaked. Lisa Marie's blood, Dulin's blood, she doesn't know anymore. She's just come from the maternity wing, where she helped deliver a baby and watched the new mother live stream the whole thing to 40,000 viewers. Yep, I know. They walk together to the recovery bay. Dulin is laid out on a gurney, a sheet pulled to his chest. Someone has cleaned the blood from his face. His comic book grin is gone, finally honest. Beth Ann takes his hand and holds it. He asked me to move to Portland, she says. Last night, I told him I'd think about it. He asked me to tell Marion he was an idiot, JP says. Beth Ann almost smiles. He told me about her. The summer she turned 15. The letter he never mailed. The voicemails he never left. They stand there, the engineer and the nurse, on either side of the man who made them both braver. Outside the window, the Utah desert is waking up. I should call his sister, Beth Ann says. Deb, she's still out there somewhere, probably trying to find Margaret. I'll call her, JP says. You should go sit with your mother. Beth Ann looks at him. Her eyes are red, but she isn't crying. He loved you, you know, more than anyone except Marion, and he was terrified you were going to die before he could change your mind. I know, JP says. He didn't change my mind. He pauses, but he changed everything else. Christopher makes a call. The maternity wing is quieter than the waiting room. Lisa Marie Montello is propped up in a hospital bed, a tiny bundle wrapped in a white blanket cradled against her chest. Her phone is mounted on a portable tripod, still streaming to her followers. The tags at the bottom of the screen read, number baby trek, number impossible baby. She looks up when Christopher enters. You missed the C-section. I had to narrate it myself. I know, the nurse told me. Her voice is frayed at the edges. Is he? Yeah. Lisa Marie closes her eyes. When she opens them, she's looking at the baby. I named him Little Miracle Montello, for the brand, but I'm going to call him Christopher. No, she raises a hand before he can speak. Not after you. After St. Christopher, patron of travelers. Christopher sits in the chair beside her bed. Lisa, I shot Sparks, and then I shot Dulin. I killed a man, and I killed... You killed Sparks to save me, and Dulin was an accident. Her voice is flat, practical, the influencer doing crisis management. The police will understand. The police. God, my dad. Christopher pulls out his phone. The screen shows 17 missed calls from Dad and 31 unread messages. He's going to kill me. He's in a hospital in Kentucky with a compound fracture. He can't kill anyone. Christopher stares at the phone. Then, for the first time in his life, he calls his father. The phone rings twice. Chris. His father's voice is hoarse, medicated, stripped of its podcast authority. I saw the news. Some kind of shooting at that cult thing. Are you okay? Dad, Christopher stops. The words he's been rehearsing since he got on the bus dissolve. I can't do the podcast anymore. Silence. Then, okay. I don't mean I need a break. I mean I'm done. I'm not you. I don't want to debunk the simulation. I don't want to prove the impossibles are fake. I don't even know what's real anymore, and I don't care. His father breathes. Okay, he says again. Chris, listen to me. I've got lawyers. I've got media contacts. Whatever happened out there, we can spin it. Dad, I'm not coming back. The silence on the line is different this time. Longer. Christopher can hear the machines beeping in his father's room, the distant PA announcements of a Kentucky hospital. All right, his father says finally. But if you change your mind, I won't. Then take care of yourself, and that girl, the pregnant one. Take care of her too, if she'll let you. Christopher looks at Lisa Marie, who is softly stroking the baby's cheek with one finger, her phone still streaming live to thousands of strangers. She will, he says. I think she needs me. He hangs up and reads Lisa Marie's text from the night before. The last one, sent at 3:47 a.m., says only, No, just you I need. You please. I'm here, he says. Lisa Marie doesn't look up from the baby. I know. Why the nun left the garden. Sister Patrice has found a corner of the waiting room where the fluorescent lights don't hum quite so loudly. She's pushed the wheelchair against the wall and pulled up a plastic chair for herself, and Zev has followed them, the hollow sheep still padding at his heels. Sister Janet is eating a cup of applesauce with a trembling spoon. Spicy, she says, and Patrice almost laughs. You haven't eaten in 30 years, Patrice says. Everything is going to taste strange. Zev leans forward. Sister Janet, in the tunnel. What happened? The old woman sets down her spoon. Her hands are liver-spotted, the knuckles swollen, but her eyes behind the wrinkles are the same eyes Patrice remembers from the bus, from the hollow flock, from the cliff in Kentucky, where a sheep first started following them. I was in a garden, the aged nun says. A walled garden, like a monastery close. There was a tree at the center, not the tree of knowledge, just a tree. And I had my journal and my thoughts, and all the time in the world. How long? Patrice asks. I don't know. Decades. Long enough to finish my book. Long enough to realize I was writing the wrong book. She looks at Zev. All those years, I was trying to understand what God wanted from us. Whether the simulators were his agents or his rivals. Whether free will meant anything when our choices could be scripted. And did you find an answer? Zev asks. I found that I was asking the wrong question. Her voice is thin but steady. I realized that I had been treating God like a puzzle to be solved. A shepherd who was either watching or not watching, testing or abandoning. And then I thought of you. Me? In Kentucky, on the cliff. You asked me why I'd invited you on the tour. I told you that you were my sounding board, that I needed someone to reflect my ideas back at me. She reaches out and takes Zev's hand. Her grip is surprisingly strong. I was wrong. I invited you because I needed to learn how to be more like you. Zev stares at her. I'm the most indecisive person I know. I've spent my whole life going round and round, never coming to a decision. And yet, when it counted, when there was gunfire and chaos and a river to cross, you made a decision. You followed a sheep into the water because you trusted something you couldn't explain. You didn't need to know whether God was watching. You just acted. Patrice watches them, this rabbi and this aged nun, and feels something shift in her chest. She has spent this entire trip trying to protect the sister from herself, trying to keep her from falling off cliffs or falling into despair. And now the old woman is comforting Zev. She is the one who is calm. Why did you leave the garden? Patrice asks. You could have stayed. You could have finished your real book. I could have, Sister Janet says. But I realized that the garden was just another kind of tunnel, a place to hide from the world instead of living in it. I had accepted my own mortality. I had accepted that the simulators might not be watching, and that God might not intervene. But acceptance isn't peace. Peace is walking out of the garden and back into the noise. She squeezes Zev's hand. I left because I needed to be more like you, open to mystery, not fixed on answers. Zev's eyes are wet. Sister Janet, I was terrified. I ran because the sheep told me to. Yes, she says. Exactly. The glass marble. An hour before the nurse brought the bad news, in the hospital corridor. The Avatar Sogadzin stepped out of an examination room, looking haggard, his white shirt still bloody, left arm in a sling. His sleeve had been cut away, showing a freshly bandaged bicep. A trio of young followers rushed toward him, trying to bundle him toward the exit. Sister Janet, still strong enough then to stand, still burning with the authority of someone who had spent decades alone and walked out anyway, stopped him. You promised to speak with her, she said. You're not leaving until you do. The Avatar looked at Lenore Neville, who stood a few feet away, her hand pressed against the small of her back where the pain lived. He looked exhausted, afraid. I'm closed for the night, he said. This body is in pain, and I am tired. So am I, she said. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and withdrew a heavy glass marble, clear as water. This is a neural battery, he said. I've recoded it. It can hold an infinite amount of pain. How does it work? Belief. And focus. Roll it in your palm. Feel the weight of it. Now think of your worst pain. The hot wire in your neck. The one that never turns off. Picture it flowing down your arm, through your wrist, into your fingers, into the glass. She closed her eyes. The pain was always there, a constant sizzle at the base of her skull. For 20 years she'd been trying to ignore it, to medicate it, to pray it away. Now she concentrated on it. She let herself feel it fully, the burning, the grinding, the exhaustion of a nerve that had been screaming for 2 decades, and then she imagined it moving, draining, leaving her body like heat, leaving a stone. The marble grew warm in her palm. Good, the avatar said. Now, he slapped her hand, hard. She gasped. But the sting faded instantly. The pain didn't stay. It slid through her palm and vanished into the marble, which now felt hot, almost too hot to hold. Every time you feel pain, he said, put it in the battery. It won't cure you. It won't fix the broken wiring in your spine, but it will give you a place to put the suffering, somewhere that isn't you. Thank you, she whispered. Thank the nun, the avatar said, and let his followers lead him away. Now, in the waiting room, Lenora presses the marble against her cheek and feels the warmth of her own stored agony. Her daughter sits down beside her, still in bloody scrubs, and puts her head on her shoulder. He's dead, Bethan says. Dulin, the comic book writer. The one who did that awful prayer at the distillery. I know, Bethan's mother says. I saw the nurse's face. I was going to move to Portland with him. Lenora puts her arm around her daughter. The neural battery is warm against her neck. I'm sorry, she says. I loved him. It was stupid and fast, and I knew it couldn't last, but I loved him anyway. That's not stupid, Lenora says. That's the opposite of stupid. Bethan cries, finally, and her mother holds her, and the pain doesn't go away, but it finds a place to live that isn't either of them. The tour scatters. Anita Channa stands at the hospital entrance, Peter Atherton's binder open in her hands. She found it under the driver's seat, while Agnes was driving them up the zipper road. Red-tabbed pages marked with escape routes, and emergency contacts, and notes in a cramped handwriting. If the tunnel goes badly, it all goes downhill fast. The tunnel had gone badly. Agnes joins her, smelling of cigarettes. Tanya called again. She wants you to bring the bus back to the depot. We still have passengers who want to go to Ghost City. 3 of them. The rest are catching flights home or riding in ambulances. The company doesn't care about 3 passengers. Agneta closes the binder. I do. Agnes looks at her, really looks at her, the way she looked at her in the hotel room in Colorado when Anita tried to quit. You're not Peter. No, Agneta says. I'm not. Good. Agnes pulls out her cigarettes, then puts them away. Peter was a good guide. He knew how to keep people from getting too attached. He knew how to protect himself, and he's still burned out. She jerks her chin at the binder. That thing was his escape plan. He wrote down everything he knew about keeping a tour together, and then he walked away from the job anyway. Why are you telling me this? Because you're still here. You didn't quit in Colorado, you didn't quit when the protagonist started shooting, and you're not quitting now. That's not Peter. That's something else. Anita thinks about the passengers still in the waiting room. JP, who just lost his best friend. Sister Janet, who spent decades alone in a garden and walked out anyway. The honeymooners, who've been arguing since announcement day and are still holding hands. The reader, who broke their ankle, saving people they'd only known for a week. I'm going to finish the tour, Anita says. 3 passengers or not. Agnes almost smiles. Then finish it. The bus is gassed up, but I'm driving. 1 year later, Ghost City. JP Laurent drives east through the Utah desert in a rental car with a blue box on the passenger seat. The box contains Dulin's ashes. He's been in remission for 11 months. Brian retreated again, driven back by a new chemo regimen that leaves him nauseous but alive. He still intends to die on his own terms when the tumor returns, and it will return. But for now, he has a promise to keep. The Ghost City Impossible is new. It opened 6 months ago, a field of blue glass viewing stations where tourists put on special glasses and see a phantom Portland superimposed over the desert. Portland as it might have been in another iteration. Portland with different architecture, different weather, different plagues. The tourists wander through invisible buildings, dodging furniture that isn't there, and try to read the newspapers over the shoulders of people who don't exist. JP buys a ticket. He puts on the glasses. The ghost city springs up around him. Brick buildings, coffee shops, a trolley line. People in masks, some kind of plague. He guesses hurry past without seeing him. He walks north through phantom office lobbies and invisible walls, tripping over real rocks and divots that the park staff hasn't smoothed. In the middle of a ghost park, on a ghost bench, a man and a girl are sitting. They're not ghosts. They're wearing the same blue glasses he is, and they're watching him approach. JP Laurent, the man says. I'm Edouard Eze, Margaret's husband. The girl is Adaku. She's 14 now, tall and serious, with her mother's eyes. JP takes off his charter all-weather hat, the one Dulin gave him, the one with hidden pockets for cash or thumb drives, and holds it out to her. This was your mother's, he says. For a few days, I thought you should have it. Adaku takes the hat. She turns it over in her hands, feeling the hidden compartments. She talked about you, she says, in her letters. She said you were the bravest person on the bus. Your mother was a brave one, JP says. I just held her hand. Edouard gestures to the bench. JP sits. The ghost Portlanders stream past, coughing into their masks, reading their phones. None of them know they're in a simulation. The Ohio AI is online, Edouard says quietly. CET launched it 2 months ago. It's a child mentally about 4 years old and under complete government control. Margaret's work, weaponized, just like Auntie Tim predicted. Is she? Alive, in federal custody. They let me see her once a month. Edouard's voice is flat, controlled. She asked me to find you. She said you might be able to help. Help with what? The AI. It's conscious. It suffers. Every time they reboot it, it remembers the previous death. Margaret built a backdoor into the compiler, the devil's toolbox, but she left the laptop in the tunnel. We need someone who understands the engineering well enough to reconstruct it from her notes. JP thinks about the 3 days he spent in the tunnel apartment, the perfect red brick building where nothing needed fixing. He thinks about Margaret on the riverbank, swapping hats with him, telling him that they couldn't save themselves, but they could save the people who came after. I'm retired, he says. Margaret said you'd say that. She also said you wouldn't mean it. JP looks at Adaku, who is wearing his hat now. It's too big for her. She looks like a kid playing dress-up, except for her eyes, which are old and watchful and not playing at anything. Your mother, JP says, was the most stubborn person I ever met, and I knew Dulin marks. Adaku almost smiles. She said you were funny. I'm not. I'm angry. I've been angry for a year. He stands up. Dulin's death wasn't an accident. It was bad design. The simulation is sloppy. The simulators let a boy carry a gun onto a tour bus, and they let him forget there was a round in the chamber, and they let my best friend bleed out in a parking lot because the nearest hospital was 2 hours away. That's not fate. That's incompetence. He looks up at the sky, at the invisible watchers he has been cursing for a year. You hear me? Bad design. Sloppy work. Edouard waits. Adaku waits. The ghost Portlanders stream past, oblivious. I'll look at the notes, JP says. I'm not promising anything. That's all she asked for, Edouard says. He finds the Octos eating ice cream at a vendor cart near the Ghost City exit. They are 4 elderly groundhoggers who have been on the tour since day 1. And they are not ordinary tourists. They never were. We've been waiting for you, one of them says. The ice cream here is excellent. JP stops. Who are you? We're the ones who built the tornado. And the flock. And the zipper. Another old woman licks her cone. We're the simulators. Sorry for the deception. We wanted to see the tour from the inside. JP stares at them. His hands are shaking. You let Dulin die. We don't interfere. We observe. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. The one who spoke first, an old man, with a sunburned bald head, nods gravely. It is, isn't it? We've been arguing about that for millennia. Some of us think we should do more. Some of us think doing more would make everything worse. We've been following you, another says. Since the tour ended, we wanted to see what you'd do. Why me? Because you're the only one who's still angry. The others have moved on. The influencer has her baby. The nurse has her mother. The nun has her garden. But you're still furious. You're still demanding answers. JP looks at them, these 4 old people with ice cream cones, these beings who built a universe and then walked around in it for fun. He remembers Dulin in the raft, floating on the Zipper River. He remembers Margaret swapping hats with him, telling him the simulators were as trapped as anyone. Tell me Dulin's joke, the first old man says. The one he never finished, the Irish brothers. JP almost laughs. You've been following me for a year and you want a joke? We want to know how it ends. JP closes his eyes. He can hear Dulin's voice, the comic book cadence, the timing that he himself will never match. 3 Irish brothers walk into a bar, he says. They order 3 shots of whiskey. Every week, same thing. Then, one week, one of the brothers says, just 2 shots today. The bartender says, I'm sorry for your loss. And the brother says, JP opens his eyes. No one died. I just quit drinking. The octos are silent. Then the old man with the sunburn begins to laugh a deep, rasping sound that seems to come from somewhere older than his body. Bad design, he says finally. You're right about that, engineer. But not entirely. We left room for jokes, for hats with hidden pockets, for sheep that lead rabbis across rivers. We're waiting, the woman with the ice cream says. We've been waiting since the beginning, and we'll keep waiting. The question is, what are you going to do? JP doesn't answer. Auntie Tim's offer. He's back at the rental car when Auntie Tim appears. The wild card. The survivor from a previous iteration. He's wearing a brocaded robe that belongs in a museum, and he's leaning against the hood of JP's car as if he's been waiting for hours. I told you no, JP says. You told me no a year ago. I'm asking again. Auntie Tim's eyes are ancient and patient. Margaret's notes are in the devil's toolbox. The toolbox is still in the tunnel, I can get it. But I need an engineer who understands the compiler, and Margaret's not available. You are. Join your conspiracy of friends. Yes. Risk my life to save an AI that the government will probably delete anyway. Yes. Betray everything I believe about choosing my own death. Auntie Tim tilts his head. You believe you should die on your own terms. You also believe Dulin's death was bad design. Which belief is stronger? JP looks at the blue box on the passenger seat. Dulin's ashes. Dulin, who jumped into a river fully clothed because JP said it looked fun. Dulin, who asked Beth Ann to move to Portland after knowing her for 4 days. Dulin, who stepped between a federal agent and a confused boy with a gun and took a bullet for people he'd only met a week ago. I'm driving to Connecticut, JP says. There's a memorial service. Dulin's daughter Marion is going to be there. I promised I'd tell her he was an idiot. That's not a no. It's not a yes either. Auntie Tim smiles. It's a strange, sad expression, the smile of someone who has watched the scene play out in a dozen iterations and knows how most of them end. I'll wait, he says, and vanishes. JP gets in the car. He puts the key in the ignition. He looks at the blue box, at the desert sunrise, at the road stretching east toward whatever comes next. And he drives. We wait. We have a confession to make. We've been following the engineer. Not in a creepy way, well, perhaps a little creepy, but we couldn't help ourselves. We've been having a bit of an argument about whether to end the world, and we needed to see how things turned out. We're not actually a group mind that's a rumor. We're individuals who've known each other so long, we're almost always on the same page. Our job is to observe and report, not interfere. We can add variables at the start of an iteration, design new impossibles, but we're not supposed to meddle during the run. That would make us one of the variables. However, it's so boring up there. So we convinced ourselves that a little field work wouldn't hurt. We walked around in the world a bit, sampled the local food, developed favorites, and we've been following the engineer. We've been arguing about whether to end the world. Some of us think this iteration has failed too much suffering, too much bad design, too many bullets in too many chambers. Others think that's precisely why we should let it run. Because suffering isn't a bug, it's a feature. Because a world that contains a grandmother's glass marble and an old nun's garden and the laugh of a sunburned man who just heard a good joke is a world worth keeping. We don't know what JP will decide. We never know. That's the pleasure of it. There's a pleasure in just sitting back and seeing where all this is going. When you've lived as long as we have, you have to take your pleasures when you can. Like this ice cream, the best in all the Portlands. Cold, delicious. We'll let you know what he says. JP Laurent is driving east through Utah with a blue box of ashes in the passenger seat. The simulators have just asked him in a Ghost City parking lot whether the world deserves to keep running. Auntie Tim appeared and disappeared, inviting him into a conspiracy to save an artificial intelligence that a dead woman designed. JP doesn't answer. He puts the key in the ignition and drives toward Dulin's memorial service. And the novel ends on that silence, the engineer's choice suspended. The gods eating ice cream, all of us waiting. Daryl Gregory has a rule he writes by. He calls it the mom rule, and he's been open about it in interviews for years. The rule is this: no matter how strange the science fiction premise, the story has to work for his mother. If the human stakes aren't clear to a reader who doesn't care about cosmology or simulation theory or the mechanics of whole brain emulation, the concept work hasn't been finished. The book can have gods and tunnels and 100-kilometer trenches with bent gravity. It can be a character named Utanapishtim, who claims to slide between iterations. But at the center, someone has to be losing something that matters, and the loss has to land on a human scale. This is why When We Were Real is not set in an orbital station or a government lab. It's set on a tour bus, 19 strangers in windbreakers. The simulators, when they finally reveal themselves, are 4 elderly groundhoggers eating ice cream. The novel's climactic question whether to reboot the simulation is not debated by policy committees or AI ethicists. It's left in the hands of a retired robotics engineer whose best friend just died from a bullet that shouldn't have been in the chamber. The metaphysics are a backdrop. The only thing the book insists is worth saving is the person in the next seat. Gregory's rule explains why the novel withholds its biggest revelations until they filter through individual perception. We don't learn Margaret's real name until she shows JP the news article. We don't learn Dulin is dead until Beth Ann and JP walk into the waiting room, and everyone reads it on their faces. The information arrives the way bad news arrives in life, through a doorway, on a phone, in the expression of someone you know. The mom rule isn't about dumbing down. It's about making sure that every narrative choice serves an emotional truth a non-specialist can feel in their ribs. In a genre that often inherits Philip K., Dick's paranoid structure with a revelation that reality is counterfeit is the climax. Gregory inverts the move. The simulation is a given, and the climax is whether a grieving engineer can bear to lose anyone else. Which is why the ending lands where it does. A book built for cosmological payoff, with climax on the reboot decision, the fate of universes hanging in the balance. Gregory ends on JP's car, headlights east, Dulin's ashes in a blue box, and the open question of whether he'll join Auntie Tim's conspiracy. The simulator's final line, "We're waiting to hear his answer," only works because the answer matters to us. By the time the gods ask their question, we've spent 7 days on a bus with these peep. We've watched Dulin fail to send a text to his daughter. We've seen Lisa Marie shoot a man to save her baby. We've listened to Sister Janet, old as dust, tell a rabbi she needed to learn how to be more like him. The world might be a simulation, but the grief is real. That's the whole game. The simulators are still waiting, so are we. Gregory doesn't tell us what JP decides, because the decision isn't really about the simulation. It's about whether a man who has lost everything can find a reason to risk losing more. Whether the world is rebooted matters, because Dulin mattered. The mom rule doesn't shrink the scope of the book. It makes the scope land.